Hey, welcome to the Extra Podcast. My name is Daniel Markin. I'm joined around the table by Jeff Bucknam.
Hello.
And our Christmas friend...
Wow.
Johnny the Elf!
I don't think I've ever been called an elf before. A leprechaun a couple of times.
Really?
But,
You're
yeah.
a bit too tall for... This is Jonathan Giesbrecht.
Yeah, Giesbrecht. I'm a little too tall. I
Worship
feel like I'm a
pastor
little
here at Northview.
Although I'm not that tall.
How tall are you, Jonathan?
Well, it depends. I write 6 feet.
How heavy are you, Jonathan?
But that's another topic that's
Color's
a little more
your hair?
sensitive. Ginger.
And your
that's
eyes?
a lot. I don't know. They actually change depending
How long
on the
until
shirt
you get a
I wear.
sunburn?
How much can you weightlift?
What's your bench?
Bench, the bar.
What's your squat?
Maybe my body weight.
What's your hang clean?
My what?
Your hang clean. It's really complicated and boring. We don't need to talk about that.
Clean?
It's a kind of weightlifting.
Oh.
Jeff, did you ever do weightlifting?
I did for a little while in my life.
Yeah?
It's kind of gross. When I was in high school, I started to lift weights, but it gave me an inordinate amount of acne.
Are you serious?
Yeah, not on my face so much as my back because I was
great,
doing
yeah.
a lot of bench pressing and that kind of stuff. And for whatever reason, I just had this it was horrible. I couldn't even sit down and put my back up against things because I had these all sorts of things on my back. It was horrible. So I stopped and it went away. It's like, oh, this is way better.
See, I started weightlifting in high school as well because I was probably in grade 10 or 11. I was probably almost 6 feet tall, which is what I am now.
$1.25 soaking wet.
Maybe.
Really?
Probably closer to 115.
Wow.
Yeah. And by the time I graduated, I was probably around 140.
Did parents...
Which was huge. That's a huge increase.
You and your wife wear the same pants?
Now, no.
Jonathan, you got a nice new suit, a nice slim looking suit there I saw.
Oh, my word.
You were wearing that on the weekend in the Christmas production.
I was.
What color was that suit,
It's blue.
Jonathan?
It's blue.
It was kind of a Willy Wonka blue, though, isn't it?
Well, see,
It
this
matched
is
your eyes, Jonathan.
I'm not that fashionable. I was actually confession time. I was a groomsman in my cousin's wedding, and he said, "This is the suit we're going for." And I looked at it and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" My
Is it the same suit that you just...
Yeah,
so you had to
yeah.
buy this suit
I bought
for
the suit
wedding.
and I was like, I'm not just going to wear it once. I bought a suit. I'm going to wear it twice. So I wore it to the Christmas banquet that our Northview staff had, which was the Friday before the kids' production. And Dwight and Adriana saw it and they said, when you do your air guitar thing, you need to wear the blue suit. And I was like, are you kidding me? I didn't wear the jacket.
Yeah, but you had the jacket on when you showed up to the church.
I know. And they were like, you need to wear the jacket. And I was like, who does that?
No one tells Jonathan Giesbrecht what to do
I
on
am
Jonathan
I'm
Giesbrecht's
an
stage.
artist.
Absolutely.
You can't, don't squash the artistry.
100%.
You can't do that.
All right.
Speaking of
It's great
art,
to have you here, though. I just want
thanks.
to be the first one to say it's
the
nice
only
to
one?
have you for your Christmas.
Cheer.
Greg Harris decided to take the week off before Christmas because it's not a very busy time of the year for pastors.
No, we don't do anything.
We're kidding. It's actually very busy, but apparently Greg decided that he'd take time off anyway.
Yeah, who approved that?
I don't know.
Jonathan, you're an artist, and we were talking about art, and before this program, we...
Keep going. You're doing great.
Before we began the audio program that you are now listening to, Jeff brought up underrated Christmas films. And what is the most underrated Christmas movie in your guys' opinion? When you go home and you lie your pillow when you lie your head on your pillow at night, what do you think about when you think this is the most underrated Christmas movie? Lord of the Rings.
Did we just? Let's not.
My answer to that question, okay, there's a movie that I really like, a Christmas movie that we watch all the time. It's called A Family Man. It's a classic Nick Cage film. It actually does have Nicolas Cage in it. It is the only. I'm trying to remember if there's another Nick Cage film that I've seen that I actually like. I'm not sure.
It's a Nick Cage film because all the dialogue's either whispered or screamed.
So Nicolas Cage is this. It's kind of It's a Wonderful Life backwards.
Oh.
So it's
a terrible
This
life.
guy who's living. It's a guy who's supposedly living the dream. Okay, of being a single guy in New York City who makes a ton of money, but he's given a glimpse by Don Cheadle, who's the angel in this case. He's given a glimpse of what his life would have been like had he chosen to instead get married to his girlfriend, who he ended up leaving because he he chose to go to London and take a job there. So if it's a counterfactual movie. So if he did that, he gets a glimpse of his life living in New Jersey with a couple of kids, and he bowls and stuff.
So it's at Christmas time, or?
Yeah, totally. It's all around Christmas time. The whole thing happens right around Christmas, on Christmas Day, all that kind of stuff. It's a very
thrilling.
uplifting. No, it is. It's a very uplifting movie, and the point of the film in the end is actually quite affirming. It's basically that, all the money in the world doesn't replace one's family, and you would trade all that money in for kids and all that kind of stuff. So as a father who has children, I feel affirmed when I watch the movie. And Nick Cage is in it. So underrated. These are underrated, okay?
No,
underrated. I'm not saying it's
I don't know it.
It was the best movie
great.
ever.
No, that's good. That counts.
Okay,
yeah.
Jonathan, you go.
Confession time. Again.
Is that it? Is that a movie?
No. This is I love The Grinch.
You mean the
live
Jim
action
Carrey one?
or the cartoon?
Both, but actually the cartoon.
Yeah, well,
My family tradition now is
that's not underrated.
Is it not underrated?
No, it's
I don't
up there
know
with
people. Do
Not
people
above
watch
Charlie
it?
Brown. Obviously not above Charlie Brown.
Do people watch it though?
Okay, my most underrated football team, the Patriots.
Do people watch it?
I don't know if anyone else likes the Warriors in basketball, but I do.
I don't know a lot of people who watch it, but like my family, my siblings and I and my wife and our kids haven't yet, just because they might take inspiration from the Grinch. But we just watch it every year, and it's
course you do.
one of my favorite things. Is that something people
It
do?
is. Oh yeah.
Oh, then that's a terrible answer,
Yeah.
and I apologize. I feel like I've ruined this segment in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Daniel, do you have a favorite underrated Christmas film?
I do, and it's one that's kind of mainstream, but everyone loves to trash. And it's called wait for it, The Polar Express.
Ow!
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Really?
No.
It's a animation. It's based off of like a kid's children's book.
A kid's
kid's children's book. And it's about this train that every year takes kids to visit Santa on Christmas Eve.
Isn't it Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks plays.
Tom Hanks
Plays all the characters. So
Does
he
he?
plays the conductor. He plays the guy who the homeless guy who lives under the train. He plays a bunch of the people.
Is he? That's like the Nutty Professor then,
Yeah, but the whole idea
right?
behind
'Cause
it.
what's his name? Played all the characters in that one. Do you
Mike
even
Myers.
know what that is?
Mike, I don't even know.
Mike
what that
Myers?
is.
Isn't it?
No,
old?
that's, he plays.
No, it's really dating me though. The Nutty Professor. That's like I don't know.
Who is it?
Early '90s stuff there. Eddie Murphy.
I was going to say Eddie Murphy, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's the
I
idea
remember that one.
of the movies. The kid doesn't believe.
Professor.
He doesn't believe, and so his faith in Santa is on its last race. And anyway, he has this little bell, then it doesn't ring, and it's supposed to be like a jingle bell. It doesn't ring, and he goes on the train anyway, and they finally make it to the North Pole, and then he wishes something to Santa, and all of a sudden, when he's not about to believe, like it goes ding 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 ding, and he believes. Great movie, great
it's so
soundtrack.
special.
Everyone just loves to trash it because Tom Hanks. It's computer animated and it's a little bit dated, and everyone says Tom Hanks's eyes look soulless. And so
probably-
like,
because
like
it's
I can't watch this movie.
computer
It's too
animation.
creepy. So, anyways, it's great. I love it.
Computer animation looking soulless?
Apparently.
Say it ain't
Anyways,
so.
no, I love it. It's great. It's got a little bit of music. There's a scene where there's hot chocolate, and they're all tap dancing, and it's great.
Do you watch it every year?
No,
Okay.
this year I saw 6 minutes of it on TV,
Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty special.
but I wish I watched it every year.
What's the best scene you've ever seen in a movie? I will leave that for the Christmas. You know what? We're going to leave that one for the Christmas.
for the parking lot podcast?
Parking
Yeah.
lot podcast.
So just like in the previous years, sometimes there gets to be a little bit of a lineup in the parking lot after our Christmas Eve services, and so we provide a 10-minute podcast where we discuss all things having to do with Christmas. So you'll be able to do that again this year at the church. We have flaggers though out on the street, so we'd probably be all right without it.
just
without having it.
don't go in the line and then stop there to listen to the whole
No,
podcast.
no,
You
yeah.
can listen to it on the way home.
Pretty sure that's not going to happen.
I hope not.
But Jeff, that was a great plug.
Yeah, that's
That
it.
was
That's what you
mastery.
call a tease,
It is.
gentlemen. All right.
Well, Jeff, we were talking about what is big in the world right now and what is monumental in everyone's lives besides Christmas. And you mentioned Star Wars, which we talked about last time.
We did, and we probably should issue a public apology for causing an affront to several people about both the Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars franchise. We did not know at the time that we were on sacred ground, and needed to take off our shoes, metaphorically speaking, and that by
Literally
uttering
speaking,
such comments, we clearly don't understand literature. We're basically dumb because I deliberately used the term foundlings instead of inklings. And yes, I know that they were the inklings, but whatever. So in the end, we do it.
Neanderthal.
This is not an apology that is heartfelt in any way. Only because we're teasing, by the way, just so you know, just so we're all clear, we are absolutely teasing. I like a good Marvel film as much as anybody else, and that kind of thing. I will say this, though, on a serious note, I do find it a little odd that so many people are so interested in what, and by saying this, I'm referring to the Star Wars films, into what is basically a Buddhist story. And I find this a little bit odd that people want so desperately to defend a Buddhist worldview franchise, especially Christian people who do that. Now, I'm not saying that you can't love the characters in the Star Wars stuff, but the constant need for some people to try to turn it into some sort of Christian film is a little bit odd. Looking for the Christ figures and all these things is a little bit odd from my point of view, and it certainly does. It was something I wrote about in my doctoral dissertation, and is something that I continue to struggle with a little bit, and how uncritically people are watching the film. Now, listen, that doesn't mean that I don't watch the films and don't appreciate them. I just think that, like in all film, we should actually watch these things with some sort of critical lens, and shouldn't necessarily adopt the viewpoints that the films themselves hold.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to bring up this last film, for example, is a good example of it.
The Last Jedi.
Yeah, so I don't want to give away any massive spoilers.
Have you seen it?
I have.
Okay.
First of all, I was a little underwhelmed. And so I think that needs to be said out loud to people who
How
are
dare
sitting there
you.
thinking to themselves, when I go to this movie, and I didn't want to go to the first weekend. Some people say, I don't want to go the first weekend because, I don't want it to be, to fight the rush or whatever. I think that there's an expectation that people have that these Star Wars movies are supposed to be amazing, and that without any questions, we give them full ratings on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever.
Visually, it is outstanding.
You've seen it as well?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't
Visually,
yet.
it's phenomenal, but story-wise, and that's what you'll get into. So Rotten Tomatoes, just so
Yes.
you guys are aware, the critics are loving it, praising it like crazy.
94%.
Yeah.
Of course they are.
Audience review,
like
57%,
Yeah.
which is
Wow.
as bad as Attack of the Clones. They are shredding this.
Well, and the reason the
Interesting.
audience don't like it very much, I think, is because there's a large section in the middle of it that is trying to delve into issues that are of the nature of reality, having to do with good and evil and what people are like and that sort of stuff. And I think they go a little deeper than they need to. And I don't think a lot of people who are watching this, a lot of people who are going to go watch the Star Wars films, they actually want to watch the blasters and that sort of stuff, and they don't really want to get caught up into the particular worldview. And I think this one pushed the worldview a lot more. And so when you watch the film, some of those of you who are going to watch it, you'll I think see what I mean. That they're trying to get involved in some level of philosophy, but the philosophy is sort of somewhat self-contradictory and all sorts of.
Well, and they've been changing. This one's actually a departure from what the philosophy's traditionally been.
Yes, it has,
which
it
is leaving
different.
a lot of people frustrated.
Yeah, but I was a little surprised at how crazy everybody was for this particular one. I thought it started well and it ended well, but in the middle, it kind of got a little bit dry. Here's the thing that you should know about this film, though. Before you attend it, there are 20 to 30 minutes of commercials.
The movie said it's starting at 9:30, and it didn't start till 9:50, and it was all commercials. Why is that, Jonathan? Tell me why.
That's a great question.
Why?
I can't speak to that because I didn't witness the commercials.
But think about that, though.
But that is fascinating, yeah.
So we live in a world today, though, where most people DVR stuff. And so if your favorite show on television, you never watch the commercials, and you never watch it live, like, or when, you know what I mean, like the time that it's broadcast. Nobody watches the broadcast time. They skip through all the commercials. The only things that people actually watch commercials on are usually live sporting events,
or 5 seconds of a YouTube video.
Right, but not even live sporting events. The entire event won't usually, because most people I know, if they're watching like football game or even soccer games and stuff, like you usually record it and then feel like, oh, I can fast forward this and catch up in the fourth quarter. And so the only time that you actually, if you're a company and you want to market your product, the only time that you're worth paying, you think is worth paying for, is that last quarter of football, where people are actually hanging on it, and then they cut away to the commercial, and then they come back because people have caught up and stuff, and they don't want to miss that particular moment. Or another place where, so what you're looking for is a place where in the culture or society where people are sitting there and they have to watch your material.
You've paid for a seat.
Yep.
Yes.
You don't want to lose your seat.
And you're there early because there's a lot of anticipation. And so the movies in general are more of a bang for your buck for your advertising dollar, but especially Star Wars, because people show up and want to get a seat, and they're sitting there and they're a captive audience, and they're
entering into it trying to release their mind. And they want to enter into Star Wars. So they're not thinking critically about commercials or anything.
Yeah.
And then, the commercials are just hitting you, and you're just an easy target.
But seriously, 20 to 30 minutes of commercials. Just watching commercial after commercial
Not even
after
previews.
commercial. No preview, just commercials. And I think this is a travesty.
Do you think don't you think they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot in a lot of ways, like long term?
Well, it makes me not want to
becomes-
attend it at a theater.
Yeah. Did it actually give you that feeling, like when you were in it, where you like there's more commercials, like you noticed it during the commercials?
Without a doubt, I felt
Yeah?
sick. I kept making. I actually was leaning over to my wife saying, "This is ridiculous. Let's
You
keep
noticed
count."
it too, hey, Markin? Interesting. Very interesting.
So just be prepared if you go to the thing in the theater that it's going to be, but which of course lends most people, if you're like, you think to yourself, well, I don't want to waste that much time watching commercials. So you just wait for it to come out on your Netflix or whatever, or pay-per-view for $6 on your TELUS or Shaw account.
Do you think then this is saying to our culture that we're less consumerist now and we're more about the experience, and so the consumerist is trying to catch up?
No, I think that people are going to struggle. I think that companies are going to struggle in the days to come, and they already are figuring out how it is that they can sell their wares to us.
Yeah.
How can I advertise to people? And print advertising is down, even on the internet. They're trying to figure out a way. A lot of companies trying to figure out a way, like the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Globe and Mail or Vancouver Sun. They're trying to figure out how can we keep afloat and still pay our people when the advertising revenues are so low, right? And it's based on page views, and not that many people are looking at the page views. And network TV is going down big time, and so they're having to charge less and less and less for their commercials. And so it's the whole thing is about to be shook up, I think, at some level. It's going to be a pay-per-use, I think, at some point.
Yeah. It's interesting seeing how technology moves so fast, and you see, in this example, you see marketing strategies just trying to keep up, trying to figure out how to maintain their audience with the ever-changing, use of, your PVRs and
we want it
DVRs
free,
or whatever. So.
And that's the problem. We want it. We want all this stuff free because we're used to getting it free on network TV or whatever. And the way you pay for it as a watcher of the show or the event is to say, look, I'll give you this amount of time for you to advertise to me so that I can get this thing for free.
Yeah.
The problem is the technology now exists for us not to have to pay that price.
Yeah. So
how, and the expectation is that you still provide for me the content, but you've got to do it in a way, so I think nowadays product placement's a big deal in films and that sort of thing. And I know that in like soccer, international soccer, the advertising boards are what they use. So digital advertising boards, so that during the game,
too.
It can rotate through. They do it in baseball a little bit more behind the home plate. They'll show a little screen that is constantly advertised. That sort of thing seems to be something that will probably happen in the days ahead.
Yeah.
But it is frustrating when you go and you pay your $13 to be advertised to
for almost half an hour.
Yeah.
That's something.
Well, guys, we should talk a little bit of theology here. Jonathan, you mentioned that technology is speeding so quickly that people aren't able to keep up. We mentioned that a lot of times worship songs seem to be produced so much, and we were sitting around this table asking, what songs are we going to be singing, in the next 60 years? Are we still going to be singing the old hymns? And what songs from our generation? Because there's ones that we'd say, well, this is old. It's 10 years old. We're not going to sing that again. And then can you comment on that and then talk about how that changes with Christmas carols? Because it seems we still sing a lot of old Christmas carols.
So can I add a piece to the question?
Yeah, add a piece, yeah.
My piece is that when I listen to the Christmas carols, I hear all sorts of biblical imagery being brought up in the carols themselves. I would say that generally about hymns. But when I hear modern Christmas music or modern songs in church, there's not a lot of biblical imagery. You have a little bit of it on the Gettys, for example, or some others who are the Gettys are the people who in Christ alone, or they utilize a lot of biblical imagery, but not a lot of the songs. I mean, Hillsong's not really using Hillsong or I'm sorry, I don't know all the names of all the others, but there's all sorts
Bethels
of
and stuff like that.
They're not really utilizing biblical imagery. So my question for you is, first of all, why do you think the difference? And then secondly, what does that say about our Christian community? Because you can tell a lot about the church by what they sing and what we believe these days. So what does that say about us?
Yeah. So to sum up the question, why do modern writers not use the same language that we've used to use kind of in previous generations?
Biblical language.
Yeah, like the biblical language that you see in a lot of our older songs. I think the answer, if I'm going to put a stab at it, is probably...
I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, though.
Yeah. I think the answer would probably... I think the stab I would take at it would be that the heart of the modern writer is to find a way to contextualize that which is a 2,000-year-old document to listeners today who may have a hard time relating to a lot of the imagery that was used. So they're trying to find ways of taking the same ideas, the same gospel, and saying it in ways that that younger people or people of this era can understand. So using images that this era can understand. We were actually talking about this at a total aside. We were talking about, because we have a small songwriting team, and we were talking about different metaphors that are used in our songwriting. We feel like there's a lot of metaphors that are just constantly being brought back just because it's almost cliche now to bring these metaphors back. And we were just toying with the idea, what would happen if we flipped some of these metaphors on their head? Like we talk about God revealed in nature, which is awesome. We affirm this, God is revealed in nature. But like none of us live in the country. Like we live in Abbotsford and we call ourselves the city in the country, but like we live in a city. So how is God revealed in a city? In a cityscape? Can we include cityscape language in our songs? Is that irreverent? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
Like city people have, not totally true.
You seem to be saying that the people who are trying to contextualize, the turn toward contextualization in our songs isn't actually contextualizing it that much. That's using the same images over and over again to contextualize.
Well, yeah, and I think the heart of the songwriter is to find ways to do that. And I don't think we do it well because... we talked about this already. Technology's changing. Our world is always changing. Like it would seem silly to include a reference to like Snapchat in one of our songs because we know in 5 years that's going to be like, oh my goodness, why are we singing about that? So we don't include that. But like bringing in ideas that and concepts that people really understand. Like
so that's kind of my question to you though, or the not issue that I have, but I'm just wondering is that, look, when you use biblical image, the songs are by definition going to last because
they're far more timeless.
The Bible itself has lasted and it will last.
And I think that brings me to the second reason why the songwriters don't write that way. And it's far more negative. I just don't think it markets well. I think if you have a songwriter who's going to write a song, if he writes a song like what you see in like, O Come, Emmanuel, I don't think it sells. Like this, like O Come, like O branch of Jesse's stem.
I know.
Could you imagine that coming out in
I know,
a new
and
song?
it's-
People be like, "What is
Okay, so
that?"
I have some education, right?
Right.
Biblical education, and so I know what he's referring.
Right, but not
to,
everybody.
The promise of
not
the Old
everybody does, right?
Testament, and especially in Isaiah, that a root
Totally. Yeah.
of Jesse will come. Jesse meaning the father of David.
Yeah, and like, and this is the thing. Like, it requires a biblical literacy.
Yes.
In its audience, which we don't have.
Okay, so chicken and egg then. Is it?
Yeah.
Do we not have the biblical literacy because we don't ever sing about it, or do we never sing about it because we don't have the biblical literacy?
That is the question of our industry, of the worship industry. I don't think people know. I think there are some people who are trying. There's some songwriters who are trying to write songs that will grow people in their theology and their understanding of God, and it doesn't sell. And if it doesn't sell, you can't make a living doing that. So then you end up selling out to the system and writing about my feelings. Which everyone can relate to their feelings.
But
right?
maybe that's a problem with the industry then.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
and
so
amen.
if the point is that we're trying to sell, we want people who are writing songs are trying to make a living at it. See, I look back at guys like Charles Wesley or Isaac Watts, or these are the people who wrote these hymns, Fanny Crosby, the famous hymn writers from ages gone by. I don't think that they were supported. In fact, their hymns are public domain.
Yes. Well, they are now, but yeah.
But I don't think that were they selling? I don't know enough about it, but were they selling their hymns back in the day so that they could
would have
make
had
money
license.
off of it?
I'm sure they would have had some sort of license on it.
They didn't
but-
have Christian radio.
No, they didn't. And
At that
CCLI.
time,
Yeah,
or
nothing like that.
think, oh, well, this is going to hit this. The Chris Tomlin song is going to hit really big in churches, and I'm going to get a cut of every time they play it.
Yeah, and the truth is, this is why I really like. So we have a little songwriting team that we have at Northview, and we're the cool thing I think that we have is we're not in it for the money. We don't plan on making a penny.
Just kidding.
Clearly, we're not. No, we don't care about the money. We don't really care. All we care about is the edification of our church. So we have the freedom that a lot of artists who do this for profit, we have the freedom that they don't have. We are not tied to what sells. We are tied to what grows. So we have a lot of freedom to try to write songs that maybe are more faithful to the biblical idea and find creative ways to make them contextual to where we are today.
Yeah, it's amazing too, because with songs, you always remember the melody, and that's what
true.
makes it. You can riff off a melody from a song.
Yeah.
Like the common person could sing "O come, O come, Emmanuel" because they know that
Yeah.
in infectious melody
Yep.
that just gets stuck in their head, and it's eerie, and you're like, I need to keep singing this.
Yep.
And so that's the advantage with when you put good theology in a well melodied and well written song.
Yeah.
People are constantly meditating and thinking and talking
Yeah.
through good theology.
At the same
which
time,
shapes you.
Which I totally affirm. At the same time, it requires a biblical literacy, right? And my hope is that by singing these songs, people ask the questions, what does that mean? And find out what it means, right? So like I've been leading worship since I was, I don't know, probably like 15. And I'm not going to lie to you.
I would have liked to have been there for that first 15-year-old worship experience.
No, I still sound like that. I'm pretty sure I still sound like that.
Was it was it a Christmas? When was the
No.
first worship leading endeavor that you ever had? Come on.
It was at my small church.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was growing
What did you do?
up. I led worship.
Did you bring the guitar?
Yeah, that's all No, you can't. Truthfully, I was a hack. I still am a hack.
Here's a Bono
But
song.
I was like, I can play a G, and I can play a C, and I can play a D, and I know how to use a capo.
That's basically all
So-
Christian music, though.
Well, it's
right?
true. It's true.
You know E minor? E minor?
Well, I tried to. I just passed by that one.
Was there a lot of camp songs in that first go round then, buddy?
I don't remember. Point is, you guys are distracting me. Point is, when I was 15 and I sung these songs, I was completely ignorant of what I was singing. When I sung "O Come, O Come, Emmanuel," I didn't understand what I was singing. They were just the songs we sing.
But the people don't.
And that's what I mean.
And again, this is why it's interesting to me. First of all, I should say that I am not actually advocating that we only use biblical imagery in songs. Okay,
Sure.
I don't believe that. I think that all truth is God's truth, and the whole world is God's.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we can see in God's common grace, we can see all sorts of images that speak of God and these sorts of things. I do find it I do find biblical language, though, conspicuously absent from a lot of modern worship music.
Yeah.
And, even around Christmas, there's a song I was telling you the other day that there's a Hillsong Christmas song that we're going to be singing this Christmas Eve, which I really like. It's really
awesome.
the rhythm is great. The
Melody.
song, the melody is fantastic. It's really good. The lyrics are repetitive and very simple.
Yep.
And I compare that though to O Come Emmanuel, or what's the one I've been listening to lately?
Oh, Holy Night by Mariah Carey.
Hush it. No, that's not true. See Amid the Winter Snow.
Oh, you like that,
it's-
right?
yeah.
I think but there's a poetic brilliance in those, and a biblically biblical picture beauty. I don't know how to say that, but you know what I mean, to them. And I love listening to that. And that's my thing. In 50 years, 100 years from now, we'll still be singing those songs that are rooted in the scriptures, whereas the other ones, I don't think we will. And maybe that's just a function of music, that it's just something that we do for the now, and we just kind of discard those songs as they go along. I just wonder if we're missing sometimes an opportunity to help train our people to think biblically about things and to use the language of Scripture to help reinforce. Because the older I've gotten, and this is my thing, and the older I've gotten, and the more I know about the Bible, the more I see these Christmas songs, and I think, oh my goodness, look at that image. And if you read through the kind of a lot of the Christmas texts, you can see how these writers are just using all of this. Come thou long expected Jesus was basically what my sermon has been about the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. It's so like, you just need to sing this. And it's like a summary of everything I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Because I'm reading the same passage of scripture and preaching it while they're singing it.
Yep.
And I feel like that's something I would like the church to have more of.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I will say, being rooted in the biblical language doesn't necessarily in and of itself give a song timelessness. There's a beautiful pairing between the theology and the lyric, and also the melody and its catchiness, and the songs that last have both, right? Because there's thousands of hymns that were written that we don't know anymore.
No, that's right.
That were totally rooted in biblical theology.
Hymnal and some
of them were just, for whatever reason, musically didn't make, but songs like, even non-Christmas carols, like Be Thou My Vision, everybody knows that one. Why? It had the beautiful pairing of a lyric that was awe-striking with a melody that was awe-striking. And once you have that, then you have a song that's timeless. So I love to see more of
Wham's
those.
First Christmas.
No, not like
Okay, quick rapid fire round here.
Rapid fire.
Favorite hymn, classic hymn.
Oh, what are you gonna do that to me for?
Just go quick, rapid fire round.
I don't know.
Favorite classic hymn.
I don't.
Jonathan, worship pastor.
I don't have one. I
Of
love them all
are you
equally.
Christmas?
No, just any hymn. Any hymn.
I love them all equally.
Oh, Be Thou My Vision is my favorite.
Be Thou My
hymn.
Vision.
There's no question about that.
I love Crown Him with Many Crowns.
That's a
You
good
do
one.
like that one,
Do you
right?
like the?
I love the wordplay.
But there's a version of that song. No, that's a different song. My seminary anthem was. They called it the Diadem,
Oh, interesting.
where angels prostrates fall. Wait a minute, prostrate. No, that's right?
Prostrate.
Angels prostrate. Prostrate.
No,
okay,
I love,
prostrate.
I love him.
But see, this is a good example. I love this song, right? But the song that said "Let
Prostrates.
angels prostrate fall."
Yeah.
It sounds too close to prostate in the modern world. You're like, oh my goodness, right?
Yeah, totally.
Dude, but the lyric, crown him the Lord of years, the potentate of time.
You do like that.
Creator of the rolling spheres, ineffably sublime.
See, that's beautiful. It really is. It's beautiful. It's totally out of the reach of people who don't, like, even their vocabulary doesn't. It doesn't.
I don't even know what
encompass
sublime
that.
means, other than Gordon Ramsay yells it out. That scallops were sublime.
Ineffably.
Yeah,
What is?
yeah,
I think it's without error.
yeah. But it sounds like swearing
It sounds like without F
to
words.
people now.
Yeah.
yeah,
Ineffably.
yeah.
Well, guys, I want to hit one more topic here.
So with the closure on that, though, the closure is
Yeah.
that I think that there is a beauty to Christmas music, to hymns in general, that is something that I think that you can find in what you've said, this mixture between melody and content, and trying to find that. I just think there should be perhaps more biblical imagery in a lot of our songs, and it would probably be helpful to us to help reinforce the importance of how God's revealed himself in his word.
Yep. Agreed. And a challenge to anyone who writes songs, who likes to write songs. My challenge to you would be find ways to say the Bible
In an
today.
ineffably sublime way.
Ineffably sublime way. Exactly. No, say it in a way that's not cliche, but also not so new that it's like.
Here's one that's not cliche or so new. Here I raise my Ebenezer. Hither by thy help I'm come.
Yeah, you like that one, don't you?
I do. Mm-hmm. I've been raising Ebenezers all over the place.
You've been raising rocks of help all over the place.
See, that's the funny thing. Nobody knows. And people hear that and they're like, Scrooge?
Rock help? What? Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Good times.
Guys, like I said, I had one more topic I wanted to hit.
Okay, one more. Here it is.
And here it is. What's the balance between bad theology and heresy? Like, what's the balance?
Do we need to find a balance between those two?
Yeah, we do.
We need to have. In ourselves.
So I bring this up all the time in both on the podcast and a lot of meetings I'm in. The 1 Corinthians 3 talks about building in ways. So teachers not building in line with the foundation, and those teachers will be saved as yet through fire. So it means that they are saved people, but what they're building with and what's meant in that context is doctrine. What they're building with is doctrines that don't fall in line with what's the truth of the gospel, meaning that they're not gospel issues. The foundation, they believe the foundation about Jesus Christ, but they get other parts of the biblical story, biblical images, all that kind of stuff wrong. So it is possible for you to be a saved person who's teaching bad theology, right?
Yep.
In this passage. What's interesting about the context of that passage in 1 Corinthians 3 is Paul's basically trying to argue with the Corinthian church who's privileged one teacher over another. I have Paul, I have Apollos, I have Peter, whatever. And he's kind of arguing there, look, God is going to judge. We're all on the same team, and God is going to judge us for how we teach. So in a sense, he's kind of telling the Corinthians, hey, you don't need to pit us against each other, right? We are responsible to God for this. And so I guess there's part of me that wants to say, well, okay, so that's probably should be our attitude toward a lot of this stuff. Paul said in another place, and as long as the gospel is preached, I don't think he celebrates bad theology or bad motive, at least in that context in Philippians 1. Like he's basically saying, look, I think that is, as long as the gospel is there, as long as the foundation is there, we can celebrate that. Doesn't mean that all the other stuff is not going to hurt people. Of course it is. But it's not heresy. So the language of heresy is something that I would reserve for somebody who's denying the foundation about Jesus.
I was just going to say, can you define what heresy is in contrast to bad theology?
I tried to there. And my definition is there is the distinction between just somebody who's got the foundation right about Jesus, but is teaching something incorrect about him, incorrect about the scriptures, or incorrect about some other matter. That's bad theology.
Okay, what's heresy then?
I think heresy is bad. It is getting the foundation wrong. So when you do something that is
deny Jesus as God,
right? So like things are actually going to skew the foundation. So the question. So I'm willing to apply that standard to lots of things. So the prosperity, so people call it heresy. We can debate about whether or not that's heresy or just bad theology. It certainly is one of them. Right?
So the question of a Christian,
or maybe
then,
both.
The question of a Christian is this teaching just different than what is traditionally accepted, or is it foundation shaking? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Right. So if you end up messing around with the character of Christ, if you end up messing around with the Trinity, if you end up messing around with things that are true about the gospel itself, this is where I think issues regarding the atonement or even judgment get into it, because these are all parts of the gospel story, the big idea that Jesus came to save us from the wrath of God by becoming our substitute. Not only, by the way, our substitute, he also defeats the powers. These are all their views of the atonement. So he's more than just our substitute, but at least our substitute, so that we might be preserved from God's wrath. Because God solved the very problem that was created by us and that God had against us. So I think that story and that he's going to, renew his entire world. When you start messing around with that story, yeah. So baptism and modes of baptism to me are not messing around with that story. I think that you can have bad views of baptism. I think that issues related to whether women should be elders of churches or not. I think someone's right and someone's wrong about that. But I don't think that has to do with I wouldn't say someone's a heretic for that viewpoint. I don't agree with some people on those views, and they don't agree with me. But I think we're brothers and sisters in Christ. I might even say that their theology is bad at that, but I'm willing to say that. But I don't, I don't want to call them a heretic.
So when it talks about preachers being judged more heavily for their work and
by God, right?
By God. So you have the preacher who was faithful in all of everything he said, and then you have the preacher who's basically just known for his bad theology, but gets in because he believes upon the name of Jesus.
Well, he doesn't think that it's bad theology.
He doesn't think it's bad, but his whole life he goes doing this the whole time. He gets to heaven. He gets the same lot as the other preacher A, even though all his work is burned up.
I think that I think that preacher A, is that the preacher A, the one that was being faithful?
Yes, yeah.
I think that there seems in Scripture to be the promise of reward for the first preacher. So I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what that, what he's going to get for that. But I'm saying that there seems to be a promise of reward, especially in 1 Corinthians 3, that he'll receive a reward.
So what do you do with that?
But the other ones will lose the reward. That seems to be the idea. Now, I don't think that passage has application to every Christian. I think that the rewards doctrine stuff, I think has in the scriptures in 1 Corinthians and other places where it speaks about this sort of thing. I think that it's referring to Christian leaders and how they lead, so they have the possibility of reward or greater judgment.
Just firing off of the top of my head here, listening to you say that, does that give the idea though that there's like a tiered Christian or a tiered?
No. Well, yeah. The rewards doctrine in general has historically done that. But what I'm trying to make sense of is, okay, so here in context, this passage in 1 Corinthians 3 is dealing with apostles, Paul, Apollos, and those who actually follow in their footsteps who have the responsibility of bringing the doctrinal charge and content to the church. So who is that? That's pastors these days. Probably elders would fall into that category. So this passage in 1 Corinthians 3 promises reward. What I'm saying is that, yes, I think that there is, for those who are involved in that work, there is a sense that they will be rewarded. Like I said, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they're going to get a house on the hill? I don't know. I have no idea what that means. But I don't believe that there's a lot of warrant in the Bible to extend that rewards doctrine beyond just those leaders, because I don't have the textual, but you know what I mean by textual basis?
Yep.
I don't actually have passages of scripture that read in their context argue that way. The passages people bring up to me to say, no, everybody gets rewards, and there are varying levels of reward in heaven.
Crowns and
I'm saying that those passages don't teach that, that those passages talk about the reward of heaven, right? Or the reward of the crown of righteousness, which is righteousness, crown of life, the crown which is life, right?
Yep.
So, Revelation 2 and 3, the letters to the churches, if you stand to the end, you will receive the reward. It's the reward, in that it's life itself. And so I think that in general senses, that's what's happening in those places. We preached a sermon this last year, I think in Matthew 20, that's basically about that, where the guys come at the end of the Jesus tells a story about the guys who hire different people at different times of the day, and at the end of the day, they all get the same thing. I think that's generally the idea in terms of discipleship.
Yeah.
But there seems to be something said about Christian leaders who are charged with the doctrinal care of the church receiving some kind of reward.
Well, thanks for that. And I think we have arrived at the end. The train has stopped.
It is stopped. You know what? Daniel, Merry Christmas. Dan, you brought in the turtles today. I just want to thank you for...
Yeah, I don't have any left.
A few turtles which are not made, we're not talking about literal turtles that you brought in.
Talking about the chocolate turtles.
We're talking about
which, by the
chocolate
way,
turtles.
we discussed.
I love turtles.
I don't know if I've ever gone and bought turtles in my life. They just always have been given to me.
Who gives them to you?
Just random people. This one was
Just
in
random
particular-
people. They just walk up to you and hand you these little chocolate
Yeah,
turtles.
hey, I listened to the extra podcast. It's a worldwide podcast that everyone listens to.
It's the hair. I bet they see your hair and they think, here's some turtles.
It'll help grow the hair. Well, this has been an excellent program. We will see you next week.